because it created accepting, non-judgmental, and engaging spaces to explore their own diagnoses, acquire and strengthen skill sets, and to build community with other superheroes.
Folks are talking about mental health and neurodiversity more, but has life changed or stigma really ended for those who live with diagnoses like depression, anxiety, bipolar, dyslexia, autism, or ADHD?
Not as much as you'd think, and not as much as those of us who live with these labels needed to change. In fact, stigma has really just morphed, or more accurately, it's been sugar-coated.
Wait, we're talking stigma, not strudel. What do you mean sugar coated?
Sadly, we have gone from being hidden problems to problems of labeling and accommodation. Or worse, we are trooped out as examples of exceptionality and resilience just because of what we've endured. Our diagnosis is something that we have overcome, with no acknowledgement that some of the biggest obstacles that we have faced are outside of our brains and inside the classrooms, offices, living rooms, and locker rooms that we've experienced. Stigma is still our greatest obstacle to overcome, and it comes at us from all sides, even from some folks who think they're helping and supporting us.
Wait, don't their good intentions matter though? I mean, they are trying to help you after all.
Well, not really. Impact matters more than intentions. And think about the impact that it has on us. Imagine what it feels like when someone who thinks they are helping really does something that is either maintaining things or possibly actually making them worse. Really, it just makes it harder for us to point out the stigmatizing aspect of their help. So things stay the same for us while others go on thinking that they are doing better because they believe they understand us and what we need, but they aren't getting the information or insight from our perspective.
I am pretty sure that no one who is trying to help wants to cause more misery. So, how is this happening and what are the consequences?
While more organizations like schools and companies are talking about mental health and neurodivergence, and HR departments are adding professional development programs or employee workshops, the problem that still remains is that most of these steer clear of discussing diagnoses directly and then talk about well-being in a broad and generic way, and where things like self-care are put out again in this really universal one-size-fits-all way, where it's like a magic wand that's meant to fix everyone's woes and do so equally. Or they will offer programs that see diagnoses that are defined by what is disordered, missing, or broken about us. And we're still seen as risks to attendance, records, and sick day use. I mean, ask any company if they treat a hospitalization for a mental health crisis the same way they treat hospitalization for a heart attack. And you'll find out pretty fast how deep the stigma really goes.
So, what are stigmatizing perspectives that need to be changed that come with this approach?
There are three big stigmatizing obstacles to overcome. First, recognizing that self care is important, but what works for us and what works for those folks without a diagnosis is very different. And those of us with with diagnoses need things that are tailored uniquely to us. I can tell you that my PTSD ADHD brain does not meditate the same way as most coaches, yoga instructors, or apps would have me try. And as a trauma survivor, the methods suggested could actually harm me rather than help me. So one size doesn't fit all. Two, we are not broken, disordered, or dis anything else. So talking about us using those kinds of labels isn't something that's helpful. It's actually stigmatizing. I am different, not disordered. These labels come from the belief that there is a definable normal from which folks like us deviate. Sorry, but normal is just a setting on the dryer, and it's not even the right setting for every laundry load. Third, while our diagnoses can present us with challenges, did you know that they can also give us insights, aptitudes, skill sets, and superpowers? And that acknowledging those helps us not only manage the challenges, but it helps us to strengthen these gifts that others don't possess.
So what you're saying is that as long as this continues, everyone loses and stigma wins? Folks with lived experience of mental health and neurodivergence don't get to use and strengthen their gifts, and that those around them miss out on what they have to offer?
Exactly. Think about how different things could be if we were all able to bring our A game to the table and given the opportunity to play to our strengths and use our gifts to strengthen ourselves and our teams. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
But isn't it that way already?
I wish it were. But right now, everyone loses because for those of us with diagnoses and lived experience, that acknowledgement and inclusion is still pretty much a utopian fantasy that we watch workplaces, schools, and society offer those who live without mental health and neurodivergence diagnoses, while we get offered extra hoops to jump through as part of their definitions of supports and accommodations. We can't bring our skills to the table if they aren't acknowledged and if we aren't even invited to the table.
So, what's the real solution to crush stigma and empower people?
It's flipping the script and focusing on strengths so that we can build self knowledge, self management, and self compassion and foster acceptance, non judgment, and engagement for those around us. And there's a surprisingly easy and effective way to do it. And it starts with the language and the stories of superheroes and their allies.
Wait, superheroes? Okay, hold on. You have lost me here. What does this have to do with anything? I mean, I like superhero movies as much as the next person, but you cannot talk about something serious like mental health and neurodivergence and use comic book characters.
Well, actually, and I don't mean to geek explain here, but I have found as a geek girl who loves comics and superheroes, and with my lived experience of mental health and neurodivergence diagnoses, that superhero characters and stories actually provided me with a safe, engaging, relatable, and fun way to discuss ideas that many find challenging or awkward, and to integrate evidence based tools and resources that mental health and neurodivergent superheroes can customize. I mean, think about it. Superheroes are part of our pop culture, and you don't need to be a comic geek to recognize the names and stories of characters who can give us insight and inspiration and help us see ourselves a little differently. And better yet, have others see us in a new and empowering light.
But superheroes aren't real, and they certainly don't have real lives. And anxiety is certainly not the same thing as being bitten by a radioactive spider.
Funny you should mention radioactive spiders. Think about how the most beloved superheroes are ones whose humanity and frailties we relate to, like Peter Parker. We see his pain and the struggles he faces, including how he has to adapt to gaining his powers, using them responsibly, and his challenges and mistakes along the way. He doesn't just get superpowers and then his life becomes perfect. He gets new abilities and new challenges. And it's as he learns to manage these new powers that he grows as a person and as a superhero. That sounds an awful lot like learning to live with and manage a diagnosis, in my experience.
So, what does it mean to be a mental health or neurodivergent superhero?
Well, for starters, it doesn't mean we are perfect or better than anyone else. It just means that, like Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, Carol Danvers, and Jean Grey, we have a different lived experience that both grants us certain abilities and insights and throws us different challenges. Having our assets seen first is key. And it's actually why I use the term superpowers, because it's usually our challenges that have been used to define us. But when we think of superheroes, well, we focus on their assets and the powers that they have. And then maybe we recall their challenges and empathize with them when they do struggle.
Is that why so many non geeks use superpowers incorrectly and calling something that they do really well their superpower, forgetting that superpowers actually come with challenges and struggles too?
You got it. And we need to remember that superpowers are neutral. If supported, they can help us do great things. But if stigmatized and unsupported, they can wreak havoc on our lives. And either way, they present challenges that need to be managed. Superpowers aren't just what you do well and easy, they come with power and responsibility. And people without superpowers tend to misunderstand superheroes a great deal. Just ask Peter Parker about J. Jonah Jameson.
So it sounds like talking about superheroes and superpowers is a respectful and realistic way of addressing mental health and neurodivergence because we naturally tend to reframe to see a superhero's assets first and their challenges second, and then to see those challenges with empathy and compassion.
Exactly. And that's what's been missing in our experience. So, using the rich language of superheroes and superpowers gives us an empowering place to see ourselves by putting our assets and our strengths first, recognizing our challenges with the acceptance that even superheroes have bad days, and that with the right tools, training, and support, we can do great things. It's also a great way to integrate evidence based tools that we can customize to our own needs and make our own. And frankly, we get to stock our personalized utility belts. And that is a wonderful feeling compared to, well, feeling like we're being given homework to fix ourselves, which is oftentimes, sadly, what it feels like when we're handed resources and tools from others trying to help us, but without, well, the shared experience of what it's like to live with the superhero's brain.
So, how can using superheroes and their powers help us better understand the lived experience of mental health and neurodivergence? Can you give me some examples?
Absolutely. I'll give you a few examples. Well, we've already mentioned Peter Parker. Think about how his spidey senses can give us insight into anxiety. Everything from the sensitivity to things that others around us might miss, and then how that can lead to either overthinking that many of us live with, or if understood, supported, and focused, the great strategic thinking skills and that ability to adapt and respond to changing circumstances literally on the fly. Wolverine and Captain Marvel can help us understand trauma and healing. They give us two different examples of healing journeys so that we understand that there isn't one right way of doing things. They also give us the opportunity to explore the fact that we have good and bad days. I mean, Wolverine, especially, oh heavens, that man is, the king of the bad days. Think of everything that he's been through. And yet, when you think of Wolverine and those bad days, is he any less a superhero? Is he any less Wolverine? No, he's just more volatile and more vulnerable. He's more likely to put his claws out and possibly do harm to himself and others. But he's no less a superhero. And the X-Men know that, and they surround him and they support him with acceptance and non-judgment, and they engage him in a way that works for him so that he is able to come back to the team, be a leader within the team, and do those wonderful things that he does because he is one of the most loyal superheroes you will ever meet. If Wolverine's got your back, you're golden. The X-Men know that. And you know what? When I think about it, it's Wolverine that really, in some respects, started me on this path because he's the first character that I found myself reframing through. He's been part of my journey right from the start. His story and his struggles help me remember that if he's still a superhero on his worst days, then I can show myself compassion and shut down my own inner critic on my lousy days too. Because a bad day doesn't mean I'm broken, it just means that I'm hurting. There are so many examples. Wow, from a neurodivergent perspective, we started talking about Nightcrawler because he really represented what it's like for so many of the folks in my family who live with ADHD, what that experience is like to literally pop around to different things. And it might seem like we're scattered and going all over the place, but think about all the different ways that Nightcrawler sees a room, all the different perspectives. That's part of what it means to be a neurodivergent superhero. Also, characters from Drax and Reed Richards are the first two that come to mind that are wonderful ways of exploring the richness of what it means to have autistic lived experience. And the fact that that experience is sometimes not appreciated or even recognized, and that other times people see it through a filter of what's inconvenient for them, recognizing that it's not, again, about a lack on the part of the person with that diagnosis. It's about the fact that you're not speaking the right language. You're not speaking their language. And Drax and Reed Richards give us wonderful examples of how we can learn to speak someone else's language and meet them where they're at. So there are so many different heroes that I have and superheroes that I have been inspired by. One of the things that I realized that as I started sharing this with other mental health and neurodivergent superheroes was that this perspective wasn't something that worked only for our family because we love superheroes, but that it inspired others because it created accepting, non judgmental, and engaging spaces to explore their own diagnoses, acquire and strengthen skill sets, and to build community with other superheroes. It also gave them examples and stories to help them explain their lived experience, gifts, and perspectives to others. And most of all, they liked that they could have fun doing this, which is not something that's common in our experience of having to explain how our brains work to other people.
So it sounds like there's a lot there for superheroes, but how does this superpowers perspective work for those who want to help, but like you say, aren't doing what needs to be done to end stigma?
Well, for starters, it crushes the three stigmatizing obstacles. First, by seeing our assets first and foremost before our challenges. Second, by recognizing those assets and supporting their use and development while seeing that our challenges aren't signs of being broken, disordered, or in some way less than, but part of a package that we can manage and balance. And third, it's with this insight and empathy that they are able to recognize and support the variations in self care, workplace and school supports, that we might need, and that they do so from our perspective so that the help they offer is what we need, not what they think we need.
But do they get inspiring characters to draw insights and inspiration from too?
Yes, they do. Think about all the allies that work with and support superheroes, whether it's Aunt May, MJ, or Happy Hogan helping Peter Parker, or Nick Fury working with the Avengers, because superheroes always do better with allies and teams. So the same insights and inspirations are there for allies too. And they get to see things from our perspective in the same safe and relatable context with the natural reframing that puts our assets first and helps them to relate to us with acceptance, non judgment, and engagement. Learning about our powers and our challenges alongside us makes them more effective. And as allies, that also helps create opportunities for us to share our powers and gifts with others and to be the hero of our own story along the way.
So this sounds like a healthy, empowering, and fun way to explore and explain mental health and neurodivergence. But what about the tools and resources, and where can people learn more about how to become a superhero or an ally?
I am so glad that you asked. There are a few things that they can do. You can start by liking and subscribing to this channel for more videos about mental health and neurodivergent superheroes and their allies. They can post their comments and questions below. They can even follow us on social media to see some examples of mental health and neurodivergent superhero characters and learn how to find their own superhero role model. They can click on the link below and go to www.speak-up.co and learn more about the Embrace Your Superpowers program, including the new online membership community. Here, you can enroll in self-paced courses with tools and resources that are built around understanding specific diagnoses and areas of interest, because no two superheroes are the same, and neither is a hero's journey. I'm looking forward to seeing people there and joining our community. It's a pretty cool life being a superhero. Don't miss your opportunity to be a superhero or one of our super cool allies.